The 5th year they forgot to invite me for Christmas was the year I stopped waiting and quietly rewrote everything. I didn't even find out from my kids. I found out from my 8-year-old grandson during a FaceTime call I almost ignored. "Grandma, why aren't you coming for Christmas again?" That sentence hit harder than anything I'd heard since my husband died. I smiled anyway. 63 years old, former college professor, trained my whole life to keep my voice calm when something cracks inside. "What do you mean, buddy?" I asked. "My dad said you're busy. That you're doing something else this year. Are you going somewhere cool?" Behind him, I saw the familiar living room. Stockings already hung. Tree already up. December had barely started. I wasn't invited. Again. Before he could say more, my daughter-in-law Karen took the iPad. Perfect hair. Perfect smile. Perfect avoidance. "Oh hey Linda," she said. "Sorry about that. Kids overshare." I nodded. "I heard you're hosting." Her smile tightened. "Nothing's finalized." That was the lie. I knew it. She knew I knew it. After the call ended, the house felt louder in its silence. 5 Christmases alone. 5 excuses. 5 years of shrinking myself, so I wouldn't be a burden. Something snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough. That night, instead of crying, I opened my laptop. I checked my accounts. The ones my late husband, Robert, had carefully grown. The inheritance my kids never asked about, because they assumed I didn't have much. They thought I needed them. They were wrong. I clicked onto a real estate site I'd been browsing like a guilty secret. A modern mountain home. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Private road. Security system already installed. I didn't hesitate. 3 hours later, I booked a viewing. And that was the moment I stopped waiting to be chosen. I thought buying the house would be the shocking part. But I had no idea what my kids would do once they found out. The realtor looked at me like I'd walked into the wrong life. Sensible coat, quiet voice, no entourage, and assumed I couldn't afford the view. "This home is a big investment," she said carefully. I smiled. I know. The house felt right the second I stepped inside. No memories. No expectations. No empty chairs waiting for people who never showed up. When she mentioned the high-end security system, cameras, motion alerts, remote access, I didn't flinch. "I'll take it." She blinked. "Cash offer?" "Yes." 2 weeks later, I was driving up a snow-dusted mountain road with keys in my hand, and no one to report to. I activated every camera the first night. Then I called the only man who'd never disappeared on me. "Mark," I said. I might have done something bold, or completely reckless. Mark Sullivan, my late husband's best friend and a damn good attorney, laughed. About time. By the end of the week, I was nesting. New furniture. New routines. A home built entirely around me. No guest rooms preps. No holiday guilt. Then the doorbell camera chimed. A man stood outside in a police department beanie, holding a basket. "Ma'am," he said through the speaker. "I'm Ryan Cole. I live down the road. Just wanted to welcome you." A police officer. A neighbor. A witness. We talked over coffee. He mentioned he was on medical leave. I mentioned I was done explaining myself. It felt safe. Too safe. Because 3 days later, my phone blew up. Texts from my kids. "Since when do you have money? You should have talked to us first. Living alone up there is risky at your age." Funny how concern only shows up once there's something to take. That afternoon, my security app sent an alert. A familiar SUV pulled into my driveway. My son didn't knock. He took pictures and left. That's when I knew. They weren't worried about me. They were planning something. I didn't know how they got my address yet, but I was about to find out. Because the next alert showed them unlocking my front door. The moment I saw my front door open on my phone screen, my hands started shaking, because I wasn't home, and neither were they invited. I pulled into the driveway an hour later with groceries still in my trunk, and a knot in my chest I couldn't ignore. Something was off. The bench by the door had been moved. Just slightly. Enough that only someone who lived there would notice. I dropped my bags and opened the security app. And there it was. My daughter, Rachel, and my son-in-law, Chris, walking straight up to my door. Rachel reached into her purse and pulled out a key. My key. They didn't knock. Didn't call. Didn't hesitate. They walked through my house like it belonged to them. I watched them open closets, comment on furniture, laugh about the view. Chris helped himself to a drink from my fridge. This place had to cost over $1 million, Rachel said. Mom couldn't afford this, Chris replied. Dad must have left more than we knew. Then Rachel said something that made my stomach drop. Eric said we're all coming here for Christmas. Surprise her. Surprise-me. 40 minutes. That's how long they stayed. Before leaving, Rachel placed a spare key on my counter, like she was claiming territory. I sat in my car, heart pounding, replaying the footage until anger finally burned through the fear. I called Mark first. Then I called Ryan. Within 30 minutes, both men were standing in my kitchen. They had a key, I said. They went through everything. Ryan watched the footage with a cop's calm focus. That's trespassing. Having a key doesn't make it legal. Mark's jaw tightened. Your son lied to get access. That matters. I took a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. They're coming for Christmas, I said. All of them. They think they're taking over my house. Ryan looked at me. Then let's make sure you're not caught off guard. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. I was ready. They thought they were surprising me for Christmas. But I decided they'd be the ones walking into a shock. I didn't change the locks right away, not because I was scared, but because I wanted them confident. Confidence makes people sloppy. By morning, Mark had paperwork ready. Ryan upgraded the cameras. Every angle. Every approach. And I made one call I never thought I'd make. My grandson. Dad says we're coming to your new house, he said excitedly. For 3 days. 3 days. They hadn't asked. They hadn't warned me. They'd already planned where they'd sleep. That night, I set my house exactly the way I wanted. No extra beds. No kids' decorations. No family chaos. Just 3 place settings at the table. Mine. Mark's. Ryan's. Christmas Eve arrived cold and bright. Snow sparkling like it knew something was coming. Ryan showed up in full uniform. Mark brought champagne. At 3:27 p.m., the driveway camera lit up. 3 cars. My children. Their spouses. My grandchildren. Suitcases. Gifts. Smiles. Rachel walked up first, confident, spare key in hand. It didn't work. Her smile vanished. She tried again. Nothing. Then the doorbell rang. Surprise! They shouted when I opened the door. I didn't step aside. I didn't hug anyone. I smiled politely and said, "This is unexpected." Eric frowned. "Mom, aren't you happy?" "I'm curious," he replied. "Who invited you?" Silence. Rachel laughed nervously. "It's Christmas. We're family." "Family usually calls first," I said. Ryan stepped into view behind me. Eric froze. "Why is there a cop in your house?" he asked. I closed the door behind them slowly. "Because," I said calmly, "someone broke into my home 2 days ago." And then I turned the screen toward them. They thought the worst thing that could happen was being embarrassed, but they had no idea what I was about to make them choose. The moment their own voices echoed through my living room, I watched my kids realize they weren't in control anymore. Rachel's laugh came first from the speakers. Then Chris's voice. Then Eric's. Talking about my money. My house. My space. The room went dead quiet. No one looked at me. They stared at the screen like it might erase itself if they waited long enough. "That's taken out of context," Rachel said weakly. Ryan didn't even raise his voice. "Ma'am, entering a residence without permission is trespassing. Recording inside your own home is legal." Eric finally looked up at me. "Mom, why didn't you just talk to us?" I laughed. Not loud. Not bitter. Just honest. I tried. For 5 years. I listed it calmly. No yelling. No tears. 5 Christmases without invitations. 5 excuses. 5 years of shrinking. "And now," I said, "you show up with suitcases and plans you made without me." Chris muttered, "We thought you'd be happy." "That's the problem," I replied. "You never asked." Mark stepped forward with a single page of paper. "This isn't a lawsuit. It's boundaries. Eric skimmed it. His face changed. You want us to sign something? I want acknowledgement, I said. That this is my home. My life. And I decide who's invited. My teenage granddaughter Lily stood up. I think Grandma's right, she said quietly. That did it. Rachel started crying. Eric swallowed hard. We messed up, he said. Yes, I agreed. You did. They thought the choice was about Christmas. But what I asked for next changed everything. Everyone expected me to throw them out. And that's exactly why I didn't. I'm not calling the police, I said. I don't want punishment. I want change. They waited. This house isn't a backup plan, I continued. It's not a family resort. And it's not a prize you get access to because you suddenly noticed me. Eric nodded slowly. We understand. Good, I said. Then here's how this works. Tonight, they would stay at a lodge in town. Tomorrow, Christmas Day, they could come back. As guests. Invited. No surprises lepovers. No perquis. No assumptions. Silence again. Then Lily hugged me. I'm proud of you, Grandma. That almost broke me. They left quietly. No arguments. No guilt trips. When the door closed, the house felt peaceful again. Mark poured champagne. That, he said, was power. Ryan smiled. Most people wait too long to take it back. That night, I slept better than I had in years. Because for the first time, I wasn't waiting to be included. I had chosen myself. Christmas Day wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of a family that finally knew my worth. Christmas morning didn't start with chaos or guilt. It started with silence, sunlight, and the first peace I'd felt in years. Snow covered the mountains like a clean slate. No kids running through the house. No forced smiles. No feeling like I was bracing for disappointment. Just coffee, quiet, and the knowledge that I was in control. Around noon, I heard tires on the gravel. This time they knocked. That alone told me everything had shifted. Eric stood at the door, hands empty, posture careful. Can we come in? I stepped aside. Yes. They moved differently inside the house now. Slower. Respectful. Like people who finally understood they were guests. No one claimed bedrooms. No one dropped bags. No one touched anything without asking. Rachel looked around. This place really suits you. I smiled. It does. We opened gifts. Not the rushed, distracted way we used to, but intentionally. Lily sat next to me the entire time, asking questions about my life before I was just Grandma. What were you like before kids? She asked. I laughed. Ambitious. Curious. A little stubborn. She grinned. I can see that. During dinner, Eric cleared his throat. Mom, we owe you something. I waited. We treated you like you'd always be there. Like you didn't need anything from us. That's called taking someone for granted. I said gently. Rachel nodded. We won't do that again. I didn't say I forgive you. I said show me. Because real change doesn't come from words. It comes from behavior. I thought Christmas Day was the test. But the real proof came in the weeks that followed. What shocked me wasn't that they apologized. It was that they actually followed through. January passed. Then February. And for the first time in 5 years, I wasn't the one making all the effort. Eric called just to talk. Rachel sent pictures, not updates, just sharing. They asked before visiting. And when they did come, they didn't assume. They listened. One afternoon, Lily stayed behind again. Grandma, she said, you're not what I thought you were. I raised an eyebrow. Explain. I thought you were small, she admitted. Like someone life already finished with. I laughed softly. Life doesn't finish with you. You decide when it ends. She nodded like she'd just learned something important. So had I. Because I finally understood this. Being kind doesn't mean being invisible. Being patient doesn't mean being powerless. And love without boundaries teaches people how to hurt you. Buying that house didn't just give me space. It gave me my voice back. And if my kids wanted a place in my life, they'd have to meet me where I stood now, not where I used to shrink. I thought this was where the story ended. Until one phone call proved how much everything had truly changed. The phone rang late one night, and for the first time, my stomach didn't tighten when I saw my son's name. Mom, Eric said, voice low, unsure. I need your advice. Not money. Not favors. Advice. I leaned back in my chair, mountains dark outside the window. What's going on? He sighed. Rachel's mom isn't doing well. We're trying to figure out how to support her without taking over her life. And I realized, I never learned how to do that with you. That hit harder than any apology. You start by asking, I said. Then you listen. And when she sets boundaries, you respect them, even if it's uncomfortable. Silence. That's what you taught us today, he said quietly. After the call, I sat there for a long time. Because that's when I knew this wasn't temporary guilt or holiday emotions. They were learning. Weeks later, they asked before visiting. They planned around my schedule. They asked about me, my routines, my interests, my life. One Sunday, Rachel called. We were thinking about Christmas next year, she said carefully. Would you like to host again? Or would you rather come to us? I smiled. I'll let you know, I said. And thank you for asking. After we hung up, Lily texted me. You're kind of my hero. That was the moment I realized something important. I didn't regain my place in their lives by demanding it. I reclaimed it by refusing to disappear. I thought reclaiming myself was the ending. But the final lesson surprised even me. People think standing up for yourself means losing relationships. But the truth is, you only lose the ones that required you to stay small. A year later, my mountain home still feels like freedom. Not because it's big. Not because it's expensive. But because every inch of it reflects who I am. Not who I was expected to be. My children visit. They knock. They ask. They listen. And sometimes they leave early, not out of obligation but respect. That's real love. Lily spends summers with me now. She calls this place the house where Grandma became herself. She's not wrong. I still love my kids deeply, but I don't chase them anymore. I don't bend myself into silence. And I don't accept crumbs where I deserve care. Here's what I learned, and I wish I'd learned it sooner. You can love people without letting them run your life. You can forgive without forgetting.